The Ombudsman for long-term insurance has released its annual report. It managed to recover around 185 million rand for complainants. A record number of complaints were filed with the Ombud and 91% were finalized within 6 months. The Ombud was brought under the spotlight last year when dealing with the Nathan Garner's claim against Momentum. It ruled in favor of the insurer, but Momentum later backtracked and paid out the life insurance policy to his widow, Denise. Deputy Ombudsman for Long-Term Insurance, Jennifer Price, joins us now to discuss the report. Jennifer, good evening. Thanks very much for your time. Just if you can just put things into perspective. So what exactly does your office do?
When people are dissatisfied with the service that they get from an insurer, they can come and complain to us. It's a free service. And we are completely independent. We will listen to the complainant and then ask the insurer's response and then make a decision if it doesn't settle.
And the procedure for
we try and keep it as
lodging a
informal
complaint
as possible. So people can phone in or they can send in an email, even snail mail, and we will then carry on from that point.
Mm-hmm. Now, 185.8 million rand doesn't sound like a hell lot. But, I mean, when you look at all the amounts involved in the complaints that come to you, are they big amounts or is it just...
Some are, but some are not. 41% of our complaints are about funeral policies. So those tend to be smaller amounts, 5,000 rand, 10,000 rand, round about there. But we even have some complaints that are about 1,000 rand. And for those people, it's just as important as a 12 million rand complaint that we might have.
Now, tell us, with the insurance, would you say they are the bulk of the complaints? They form the bulk of the complaints that you get?
Yeah, all the complaints that come to our office are related to insurance, life insurance, not short-term insurance. So it can be life insurance complaints, disability, health, funeral, credit life, any of those.
Any common or particularly common problems?
Claims not being paid. That's the most common complaint, and it's always been. And I think it's understandable. That is why people take out policies, is to have a claim paid when there's an incident such as a death or a funeral or a health event.
Looking at the total cases that you have to deal with, how many of them would you say, well, give or take, have to do with maybe people not understanding the rules, you know, or what the terms of and conditions are? How much of it would be, insurers, perhaps exploiting people's ignorance or just being negligent? How would you categorize the
Well, I think
cases?
the problem is that not everybody sits down and reads a policy document. It's not a very entertaining thing to read. So I think there is a lot of misunderstanding. So people have expectations that
genuine misunderstanding.
Yes. I think often there is a genuine misunderstanding of what you are covered for. And then on the other side, there are insurers that are not taking enough care to make sure that people understand, who maybe don't give the service that is deserved, and also then don't pay claims that we think should be paid. Mm-hmm. So it's on both sides.
Mm-hmm. But do you think that the laws are or the rules or terms and conditions are as clear as they are supposed to be?
Not always. There are a lot of ambiguous terms. Some of the policy conditions are very difficult to understand. We struggle to understand them in the office. So I'm not surprised that policyholders don't understand them. Not easy to make it understood. Some of these contracts are very difficult. So it is a problem that people don't always understand what is written in their policy documents.
Whose job is it to make sure that the powerful in society, and inevitably that would be business, don't actually exploit that?
I'm not sure whether it's intentional exploitation. Maybe there's some of that.
Let's just say it's not intentional. Fact of the matter is that in all likelihood, yes, of course, that's the reason your office is there in the first place. But in most instances, it'll be the small person who loses against the big guy who has the might of, lawyers and money behind them.
Yeah. So I think there are some products that have been designed more for the insurers and the brokers than for the policyholders. So that's certainly so. But there is now something called treating customers fairly. And one of the principles of that is that when an insurer designs a product, it must suit the market in which it's being sold. And I think that's a very good thing, because then one has to actually test whether the product is suitable, whether people understand it. And I think that is what is needed. More than anything, I think people need to have products that suit them rather than suit the insurers. Mm-hmm. And as to whose task it is, well, if you buy a policy through an intermediary, then the intermediary needs to explain it to you. But there's more and more...
But very often those people are chase targets.
That is so. That is so. But a lot of people now buy policies directly through the insurer, through a telephone call, etc., or maybe from an ad. And there it becomes more difficult. Who is going to explain the product to you? Mm-hmm. And a telephone call at the beginning of the policy, when you buy it, you might forget what was said 10 years on. So that is a problem, whether people actually will keep understanding what they've actually purchased.
Mm-hmm. Are there areas where you believe, given your experiences, your office's experiences, are there instances where you believe perhaps consumers need a lot of help, whether the insurer is intentional or negligent or really, but where people can really be helped so that you have to deal with less of the cases that you have to deal with currently? What could be the area that needs improvement?
Well, I think anybody who's dealt with a financial institution knows that one of the irritants and frustrations is if you get through to a call center and you tell your story and then you go back the next day and you have to tell your story again. So I think the people that work in the call centers, especially if somebody's got a complaint, needs to be able to handle that complaint, explain things to the person, and maybe put the person through to the right employee in the insurance company. So I think that's needed. I also think there should be more education. That's probably the requirement that almost in every society, that there should be financial education, both from insurers themselves doing that education, but also the regulators looking at that, and so is government. And so we also assist in that. But there's a lot of financial education needed in this country.
And how can people help themselves?
Well, going on websites.
Do's and don'ts.
Yeah. So one of the things that people need to do is to not rush into any purchase. So if you're going to buy an insurance policy, shop around. Don't just buy because you feel pressurized into buying. So that's the one thing. And do your own research. However boring it might be, do some research, talk to other people, find out which insurer has a good record. Look at our annual report on our website. We put the statistics per insurer on there. Look at all of those things before you make a decision as to what you're going to buy and who from.
Oh. Jennifer, thanks very much for coming through. She is, of course, the Deputy Ombudsman for long-term insurance. Their office recently released, well, today actually, their annual report. They managed to recover around 185 million rand for complainants.